Look, if you wanted ear tickling, you could have listened to Joel Osteen tomorrow. But if you come here, you're going to hear straight talk, okay? All right, so this is the part what we call the afterburn. And so if you have a comment or a question about today's teaching, you can go ahead and line up over here. If you're on the internet there following along on YouTube, you go ahead and type into the chat, and our Shamish team will make note of your comments and questions. All right, Steve, go ahead and get us started.
Okay. In Jeremiah 2:19, you said, our own evil instructs you. I don't believe we see ourselves as evil because we use our own understanding to see what is right, fair, and just. And that's the last frontier or stronghold of our self-sovereignty. And it's our understanding, and it's so multifaceted that we have to discover how we feel and see things daily. So acknowledgement in Jeremiah 13, acknowledgement of our own crookedness is hard because it's our own understanding we're looking at.
Correct. But just to be clear, I can see why people could read that and think, well, I'm not evil. But that's not what he's talking about. Let's change the words to the words I've given you. It says you're instructed out of your suffering. You're seeking guidance and figuring out what to do out of a place of suffering. And so we don't tend to make good decisions out of suffering. It's like I've told you over and over again, never do decision-making or posting on the internet or whatever when you're in a negative emotional place. And if you're in a negative emotional place, you are suffering. You're in an evil place. And out of evil, nothing good generally comes out. All right, so you have to get out of that evil place before you can be instructed. And that's really what he's trying to say. Look, you're getting your instruction out of your pain and out of your suffering instead of looking to the source of the healing and get the instruction out of that. So that's when you make a bad decision worse, and then that worse decision worse again, because you keep going down that road out of a wrong place. All right, Justin.
Hi, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom. So I guess my question kind of is 3:15. He says that he gave us shepherds according to my heart, and they shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. And you touched a little bit on it, but it made me think of in Proverbs 1:7, Proverbs 9:10, and Psalms 1:11, where it talks about the fear of Yahweh is knowledge and understanding and wisdom. And so what I kind of hear from that, if I'm following correctly, is that shepherds are there to teach us how to fear Yahweh, to have that knowledge and wisdom of fear, which then keeps us away from verse 22 and 4 about being stupid children and not having understanding. That way we fear him enough to do as he says and follow his commandments, because when we don't, it causes us pain and suffering, which is evil.
Okay, absolutely. You know, when we start off and we're looking at these things, and I know you went to the whole fear of Yahweh thing, etc., the shepherd's after my own heart thing. What does it mean, my heart? I think it means that the shepherds are going to feel about things the way I feel about things, right? I'm going to give you shepherds who will instruct you, who are shepherds who feel about things the way I feel. They understand how I feel. And so just maybe some of the caustic things that you hate so much that come out of my mouth are really not me, they're him. I'm just giving you a thought. Because after all, he talks the same way right here. I don't want you to think, oh, but Yahweh doesn't talk like that. Really? I can show you place after place where he does. Because he feels a certain way about certain behaviors. And so when I see things and say the same things, and I'm trying to, not in a new agey way, I'm trying to channel or be open to his words coming out of me, so to speak. You know, sometimes I feel strongly about things because that's the way he feels about it. I don't know when it's me and when it's him, and I'm not going to claim one is or the other. But you need to be open to the idea that some of it may not be me. Some of it may be him. If I'm a teacher after his own heart, if I'm one of those shepherds he's talking about, that he's given, you know, what Paul was talking about, okay? All right. Ashley.
I know I wasn't here at all of the teaching, but I did catch one glimpse on the Title Room TV back there, and apparently it was the one that I was supposed to receive this entire teaching. There's only one letter difference out of victory and victim. Wow. I can just think of a million things I could have just thought of, like, I'm not a victim. I survived all those things.
Yep. There you go.
Sorry, it's like I couldn't watch the rest of your teaching because I was stuck on that one point. I'm just like, how much of life have I missed because I'm stuck there? You know, like I made this realization when we got Sandy. I was walking her the other day. I'm like, man, I must be depressed because I don't ever get out of the house. Well, I've got a dog now. I have to get out of the house.
There you go.
But I just wanted to, it was just amazing. If that's one thing I needed out of the teaching, I think it was that. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, Mr. Chris.
Well, I remember at my college, they instead of having them call people victims of some sort of abuse, they would call them survivors. And I've been confused by that because a lot of the things that would happen to them, let's say, were not really things you would survive. They were just more like abuse, you would think. But now that I'm thinking about that, it's a different mindset to portray, even at a campus, to be like, this is a person who's survived this and overcome, rather than calling them victims, because that kind of is a label toward that person.
Right. Well, in the way I'm using it, I want you to understand that there are things that can happen to people that you did nothing to bring on. And there's things that happen to people that you may have contributed it coming on, okay? Or encouraged it, or inspired it. And so we have to be careful, how that's used, because I don't want people to think that, anything bad that happens, somehow you caused it. Because there's a lot of things that happen that you were innocent in, okay? So I prefer the idea of an innocent recipient of evil, where you didn't do anything to cause it. Then there's the idea of this victim thing, where you created a situation ripe for it. That's the way I'm using the words, okay? There's the innocent that gets abused, child abused, raped, with all those other things. And there's also those that open themselves to it. And you see people like that. You see young ladies dressing almost like hookers, and then they get raped in a dress, and you wonder, well, what were you doing? You're inviting this stuff, okay? When I talk about what I mean like rape, I mean they have guys go and take them out on dates and think they're just gonna go ahead and date rape them and molest them because they look like they want sex. And so what part of that are we contributing to? So yes, there's tons of really horrific, innocent people that have abusive, terrible things happen to them. And we do call them victims. But I'm talking about a mentality where you become more attractive to the perpetrators to do things to because you look like you are available to it, okay? And so what you want to do then is own what part of that might be you. Not to take blame for anything, but to say, I need to make sure I don't give anything to that side of it, so that if anything happens to me, it's because I was an innocent receiver, not a victim. In other words, I didn't contribute making myself an attractive target by the way I dress, the way I act, the way I carry myself, okay? Because Billy can tell you, people walking in the wrong neighborhoods where they don't belong, and they walk a certain way, they've got scared to death written all over them. They are ready to be attacked. I walked in lots of really scary neighborhoods when I was in my 18 to 20 range, because I had to go through a lot of places in Manhattan and Brooklyn, the Bronx, and whatever, for high school and things like that. And what I did when I walked through those neighborhoods, I said, I'm gonna walk like someone who lives here, okay? I watched how everybody else was acting, and I walked and acted just like they did. I had it all in my head, I live here. And everybody that saw me, whether they recognized me or not, just figured he lives here. Because they're looking for the guy that doesn't live here, that's scared to death, okay? And I just carried myself as confidently and comfortably as I live here. And nobody ever bothered me. And so this is where I'm gonna get at, okay? Again, if anything horrible happened, and a lot of people have had horrible experiences in their lives, I'm not trying to say that you caused it, contributed it in any way, all right? If it happened later in life, you may think about, did I actually do anything that I now need to learn that made me a more likely target? because somebody may perceive me as an easier target. That could have been. Then you choose not to do that in the future. You can learn from that, okay? That doesn't make it your fault. Don't own any blame for the fact that somebody did something horrible to you, okay? But there are things you could do to maybe minimize the chance of it happening again. You see the difference of what I'm talking about? I still could have gotten attacked when I was walking those neighborhoods. I minimized the possibility. I didn't eliminate the possibility, okay? And if I had walked around scared and gotten attacked, it wouldn't have been my fault. I just would have made it more likely to have happened. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because still, there was no reason anybody should have attacked me, okay? So evil, horrible people that want to cause harm and suffering as part of who they are, they're looking for those people that are a certain way, and you can carry yourself in a different way so that you don't attract that, okay? And you can learn from this. Hopefully, this is an important little piece of the puzzle. Teach this to your children so that they don't give off that, I'm an easy target sort of vibe, all right? And so I think that's a really important lesson. And if I could talk to all of you, if you're ever anywhere that you're not real comfortable, act like you belong there. Act like you fit in, act like you're part of the group, act like you're everybody, and you will basically be left alone because you're part of they won't even notice you the same because you will blend in like everybody else. Okay? All right? You know about that on the streets too, okay? All right? So that's just something that I learned as a kid, who used to take the subway to school every day and go to Manhattan, after school, go to do athletics and have to leave at night on the subways and go places, And sometimes I got home late enough at night, the buses weren't running, I had to walk. And so I was walking through some neighborhoods sometimes. Or I was standing on a subway platform at midnight or after midnight when they don't run very often and you're by yourself. But if you act a certain way, generally you don't have the problem. It's about a mindset, okay? And Israel suffered from two mindsets. They suffered from entitlement because they thought they were chosen, and they suffered from victim. Victim meaning, why is this happening? By victim meaning, I didn't do anything, and so is this, they're playing the victim, not actually being a victim, if you understand what I'm saying. Well, I'm innocent, I didn't do anything. Well, maybe you did. In this case, they did, and they didn't want to own it. Okay, so they wanted to pretend they were the innocent receiver. Well, I'm just innocent. Well, they weren't. Now, true, a lot of people are. They weren't in this case, okay? Does that help? Did it make anything worse or more muddy? I know it's a tricky thing because I don't want anybody that's been through horrific things to think I'm not with them and empathizing. I don't want you to think I'm attacking what you went through at all, okay? Or trying to get you to own it like it's your fault. It's not. Nobody should ever go through those things, no matter what, okay? Anyway.
My question was on the connection between Jeremiah and Ephesians with the idea of giving shepherds. Now, Ephesians uses emissaries, prophets, evangelists, shepherds, and teachers. And Jeremiah just uses shepherds. And I wanted to know, because you have defined shepherds as being the encouragers and the people who are more gentle, I believe in your teachings. And so, but in this context, in Jeremiah, it's like they seem to be the ones that are teaching, feeding with knowledge and understanding. So I want to know if there is kind of a one-to-one connection, or if when he's talking about shepherds, he's talking about more general?
No, you're not going to be able to go one-to-one here because the way it's being used in Jeremiah is to picture literally a shepherd. Okay, so the shepherd kept them safe. He said, we gave you shepherds to keep you safe, guide you, instruct you, as they would tell the animals where they could go and guide them and everything else. And so he's giving them a more literal shepherd metaphor here. What Paul did was he broke down that one general overriding role into 5 parts, okay? What the body would need in those parts. Now remember, Paul's talking about a body at large, not a body in the land cohesively together. Yahweh's saying, you guys, when you were in the land cohesively together, you didn't need evangelists. You didn't need apostles to run around. You didn't need any of these things. You were already in the land. Apostles and evangelists and et cetera are needed to when you're out and to go regather and to get the message around. What they only needed really was prophets and shepherds, teachers. And that could all really be, a shepherd could do all of those things. And so I sent you these people to shepherd you. And so there should be no confusion in what Paul's talking about. Paul just broke it down into separate parts of what one person would be doing and added into it some elements that would be applicable to the dispersed as opposed to the together cohesively in the land. That make more sense? Okay. And you're going to wait. I do this to you each time. I like to choose Janet to wait. Okay, we'll go to Kurt.
From Jonathan Schober, how can I stop evil thoughts from coming to me if I'm recovering from a very long addiction?
All right, so the thing that, this is really needs to be more specific and done in counsel. Generally speaking, if you're having thoughts, that you have on a regular basis, you have to figure out why you're having and what's driving them, and then you have to give yourself a new way to go. So then you have to choose a different path. So, for example, let's say someone's breaking a habit of cigarettes and they're used to it. They eat and they smoke. They eat and they smoke. So as soon as they eat, they think they want a cigarette. So that's an evil thought. It's going to cause suffering. So now you have to give yourself something that you think and that you do after eating, that you retrain yourself so that when you eat, you now have a new thought. There's something that you're actually going to do when you eat. You have to replace it with something. But if you've been doing it for 20 years, you're not going to replace it in 2 days. It's going to take you a while of practice, of retraining the thought. Now, you can do that and speed it up by using a little bit of mental, gymnastics, which is to sit and put yourself in that position where you're thinking about, I'm just eating a meal and I'm finishing a meal, and instead of thinking I want a cigarette, I'm going to think I'm going to go do this other thing, okay? And then you retrain yourself, and you can practice that. So the thoughts that come, think about what triggers the thoughts. And then you can practice in your mind when those triggers happen, thinking differently, responding differently, okay? You have a trigger, which means that something happens and something then automatically responds. Well, if that something is not something you can control from happening, it's going to keep happening, then you have to practice, at least in your mind at first, how to respond differently. All right? And if you give me if you schedule a session, we can talk about specifically the things you're dealing with, and then I can give you specifics on how to handle it. Okay, next.
Well, we have a few comments, not necessarily questions at this point.
All right, go ahead.
From Carla Guerrera, this teacher reminds me of Mishlei 12:1.
Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid. There you go. Stupid is as stupid does.
All right, Arthur and Linda Nakanechi says Galatians 3:1. Even Paul addresses the Galatians as senseless.
Yes, he does.
And that's it for now.
We might have to do a teaching on stopping being stupid. Okay, so. All right, Janet.
Rabbi, I do have a small comment and then a question, or I go back. Okay, good. When I was listening to you about Ephesians 4:12, and I was reading that, and it's exactly what you're doing. I was like, oh my goodness, it's so awesome that Abba gave us you, to do what you're doing, perfecting the set aparts, we are the set aparts, to build up the body, get the unity, because you've been talking so much about how we need to love each other, and everything that we need, you give us, and that's just awesome. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. Now remember, it's him giving it to you through a vessel, right? Okay.
Yes, Rabbi, I know you are the prophet from Yahweh, so I need your, I need you to help me understand this. So Jeremiah 3:12, when it says, return, no backsliding Israel, declares Yahweh, and then it says, I shall not look in you look at you in displeasure, for I am lovingly committed, declares Yahweh, and I do not bear a grudge forever.
Right.
So how can we find a balance to know that he has compassion for us and he's going to help us grow to his stature, but at the same time without thinking that he's just always going to be, like, is it always going to be, when he says forever, does it mean like he's always going to forgive us? You know what I mean? Like,
all right, remember the process here. Wait, remember the process here. He says, return. Okay, and when you return, I will relent or release my anger, my displeasure, and I have kindness for you. Because it would be wrong and it wouldn't be kind that if you return and I'm still going to be all having displeasure with you. Okay? And so he's saying, I don't bear a grudge. He says, I'm going to maintain whatever your punishment is until you return, though. You are the decider in how long this goes. Okay? You want to be that way? Be that way. When you're ready, I'm here. But when you come, I won't be mad at you anymore. I won't hold anything against you. I will love on you. I will embrace you. And there won't be any of that grudge being there. Okay? All right.
Okay, I'm going to kind of jump a little further back. About a month ago, during Torah Tuesday, afterwards, you had done a teaching on the slave mentality, and that's something that I've really been trying to comprehend, I guess, or grasp it. And with you speaking on the mentality of being a victim and things like that, it kind of goes hand in hand, if possibly, with being a slave and coming out of Egypt. You're so used to this certain pattern, way of thinking. And same with the victim, when you've been through so many things in defense mechanisms, I've noticed even with my own, that you tend to stay stuck in that mentality and until you have like a shepherd or a teacher, until you find your way out of it, I guess.
Right. No, I understand, Denise, no problem. Okay. So I think the thing that I want to get across is there is the actual being victimized. In other words, something is done to you, happens to you. There's the victim mentality, which is where you want people to see you as a victim. You want to be treated like you're the victim of something instead of owning that you're the cause of it. Okay? Israel wanted to point the finger at anybody. Time you want to point the finger, you're not owning it. When you want to blame something, when it really you're to blame, but you want to deflect that onto somebody else or something else, and you want people to see you as the victim. See, a lot of us have a horrible disconnect that what little bit of good treatment or love or whatever you got was when people thought you were a victim and were going to pour this on you because they felt bad for you. And now you play that role to get that, which you shouldn't do and you shouldn't need to do. Because you think, well, when I was a victim, then these people, when they realized I was a victim, treated me so nice and cared for me and were gentle with me. But then when they didn't think I was a victim anymore, they treated me like whatever. And so you go back into victim mode. And that victim mode is not about being one. It's about wanting people to see you as one. Okay? And that's, well, it's not my fault. Look, if you're still telling me that everything wrong in your life is because somebody abused you when you were 4 and you're now 50, then that's you wanting to stay in that place. Okay? That horrible memory will never go away. I get that. But it doesn't have to continually ruin your life beyond a certain point, because you can make choices at any moment to go in a totally different direction than you were before if you can actually make that choice. But if you're so used to being in this one sort of mentality, it's very hard for you to make a different type of choice because the choices are based on that. Okay, where are you when you're making those decisions? And if you see yourself only as a victim, that person did that to me and ruined my life. Well, if that defines you, then yes, your life will always be ruined. If you go back to a different mindset of, that person did that to me, and it was awful and horrible, and I wish it never happened, and I'll never get over it from that point of view, but it does not define me, and it does not limit me, now you got a whole different destiny. Okay? Because then you're not accepting that you've made other choices because of what happened to you. That you could have made different choices. Maybe you had no choice when the person abused you, but you've had a lot of choices since. And those choices are the reason your life is where it is now, not because of what they did to you. It's because of what you allowed your mind to go and where it went because of what happened to you. You didn't find a way to heal that properly, okay? I had a person in their 60s, part of the ministry for a short while, who had a horrible thing happen, probably when she was about 4. And still is playing that victim. And I actually said, I said, look, your problem is you've never dealt with this thing. How dare you? I've been to therapists and I've been on medication and but look where you still are. None of it helped. And the reason it hasn't helped is not because of what they did to you. It's because you've not done anything since to truly address it. Horrible things happen to almost everybody. Some people, it wrecks them forever because of what they choose. Other people find victory afterwards. It's all by choice, though. You could choose either route. Whatever happens, you could allow it to wreck your life, or you could use it as a stepping stone forward. Choice is yours, but you don't realize that in that moment. You feel like you're now damaged in whatever huge way that there's no way you could ever come out of it. Well, that's ridiculous, because you know you could go and look up anywhere online thousands and thousands of stories of people with exactly what happened to you or worse who found a way to victory. You know that. But then you have to believe if they could do it, you could do it. You have to believe that, though. Oh, no, mine is different. No, it's not different. If anything, I promise you, whatever you went through, I'll find somebody had it worse. In almost every case, there's somebody had it worse, and yet they still managed to figure it out. It's like I love watching this one motivational speaker guy. He's got no arms and no legs, and he's kind of bouncing around, waddling somehow on a platform, talking to people. What would you have done if you were born that way? Woe is me, I'm all done. How, hate God for allowing you to be like that. This guy figured out that way to have a life. Okay? Really impressive, And I'm sure in his story, he didn't always feel that way. But he came to a place where he realized he had to make some changes in thoughts, or changes in his thoughts. And so if you only see yourself, and this is really the problem. Okay, I had this little thing for you. It's not what everybody else sees you as. It's what you see you as and what you think they see you as. You think everybody's looking at you a certain way when they're not. And you see yourself a certain way. That doesn't make you that unless you choose to allow it to make you that. But then when you start acting according to the way you see yourself, and we always do, by the way, we always act in accordance to how we see ourselves. You're never going to be any more successful than you see yourself. You can't. You're not going to be wealthier than you see yourself. You're not going to be more successful in any way than you see yourself. Because you can't see it, you can't get there. Especially if you start thinking we all see you that way. Here's something, I don't know if you can take this in a good way or a bad way. Most people aren't thinking about you at all. Ever. They're just not. They're too self-possessed and busy in their own lives to think about you. And if you're thinking, oh, everybody's thinking about me, everybody's talking, nobody cares. They just don't. Now, yeah, there's one or two busybodies that like to talk about everybody, but other than those few people, most people are not paying any attention to you. They're just not. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's reality, okay? Because people will say things like, well, did you see so-and-so what they were wearing? I'm like, no. I saw them. I wasn't paying any attention. I don't care. If you're actually that focused on everybody, you got way too much busybody stuff going on in your head. okay? Care about people. If you're only focused on what they're wearing and what they're doing and that kind of thing, you're not focused on them, okay? So that's busybody work. Oh, did you see what so-and-so was wearing? Did you know what they did? Did you hear what they did? Did you see their post? That's not caring about the person, okay? All right, just so you know. We got way too much busybody going on, all right? Billy and I always talk about this, that one. They're just too nosy. They're all nosy. All they do is talk about everybody. There's only a few of them, thankfully, but there's too many. A few is too many. That all you guys do is just jibber jabber about each other all the time, and everybody's unhappy doing it. Don't be doing all that. That's evil. You're suffering, and the people you're talking about is suffering because you're talking bad about them. Okay? It's evil. Stop doing it. All right. Grayson.
Thank you for this teaching today. I have a question in regards to when you were talking about taking ownership over wants and desires. So is it appropriate to look at that from the observer perspective, and instead of identifying with that want and desire as being part of you, realizing that it's something that has been like you've willingly allowed yourself to be programmed with, and then looking at it from the perspective of that you have to come up with the inner will and strength to overcome it, so then you can get those programs out of the way and then reprogram with Torah, or in other words, having Torah written on your heart?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I think that the concept of being in observer mode is something I've been trying to help you guys embrace, which is why I tell you that whatever you're feeling, whatever you observe, you should start off with, that's interesting. Okay? You don't have to actually say that, but just you should think of it as being something that's interesting. Okay, that bothered me. Oh, that made me happy. Oh, that felt good. That felt bad. I didn't like that. Oh, I love that. Just find all of those thoughts interesting. And then if it's interesting, you might want to explore and figure out why that made you upset, or why that made you feel good, or why. Because if it was a good reason and it felt good, you may want to figure out how to get more of that going on. Maybe you did something nice for somebody and it felt good. You said, wow, that's interesting. I did that and it felt good. I may need to do that some more. Or maybe something happened and it didn't feel good. You may think, I need to avoid that. As opposed to just allowing yourself to just feel angry or upset, think about, I learned something, right? It's interesting and I learned something. What did I learn? I learned that I don't like that, or I do like this. Okay, now I got to figure out what to do with that information. Instead, we immerse ourselves in the feeling. And then instead of something upsetting us, we are upset. Okay? Instead of not liking something, now you become unlikable. You're just in a mood of that, or the spirit of that idea, right? Your intrinsic nature becomes that. And so if you can get into more of the observer mode where you're watching yourself, okay, I've gotten a little better at that over the years, and then sometimes I struggle with it, but there's times when I find myself really, where something bothers me, and I'm like, that's so dumb, why is that bothering you? But I'm observing myself getting angry about something, but because I'm observing, I'm thinking, doesn't make any sense, but yet I feel like I can't control the fact that it's triggered. It's a trigger that's triggered. But at least now I have a chance to deal with it because I'm aware of it. See, if you allow it to just take over, you have no awareness. You are now it. You are the feeling. You become the emotion. In the observer part, while you're still having the feeling, you're watching yourself going, you're really angry right now, aren't you? Over that? Really? That thing? You're going to let that upset you that much? And then you sit there going, that's dumb. And you say, but I am angry, but that's dumb. And you can kind of fight with yourself about it a little bit so you can let it go. Just let it go. But I don't want to let it go. But it's dumb. Let it go, all right? And so try to get to that place where you're more aware of yourself, okay? And that should help. Okay, did you have any more over there, Kurt?
Well, I got one here. I'm not sure if it's in context. You'll have to let me know. It's more about civil disobedience, I guess. First Love Yah's question is the convoy, which is referring to what's going up in truckers in Canada, something you would consider a stupid decision, considering what has happened to us all in this day and time?
All right. I think I covered this, last week or whenever we were first talking about these things. I think that if you feel strongly about something and you want to express that, and there's a right that you have in your government, wherever it is, to express, in a public way, then you should. Okay? I have already said, and it'll probably get this whole channel shut down, I think if everybody who was against all this stuff stopped working, they would stop the problem. Just say, we're not going back. Which is a legal right to strike and to protest. And so if everybody just said, we're not going to do this anymore, the problem is you don't want to be the only one doing it and they fire you. But if everybody did it, they couldn't fire everybody. They'd have to do something, okay? Of course, they'd call it an insurrection, they'd call it all those other dumb things, which it isn't. It's simply saying, we don't like what you're doing to us, we want you to stop, okay? So, from that point of view, I applaud what they're doing, and it is having an effect, okay? It's having a very big effect, and you're probably gonna see it here right after, because they're already organizing it to be here if it doesn't get things changed quickly here. Although you're noticing that it's changing pretty quickly here in response also. And so, but what you don't want to do is you don't want to be tilting at windmills and just being out there and whatever. But if you feel like there's something that could possibly actually have a genuine effect, and clearly this convoy had an effect, okay? And I do want to applaud this. Every time people tried to paint them as doing all these awful things, the people that went to check them out found they weren't. They are literally having a great time, being very friendly. They're even fixing and repairing things around wherever the convoy is that they know how to fix and repair. Okay, they're actually doing things that are helpful while they're sitting there blocking things up, all right? So I give them a lot of credit for that nobody there gave anybody an excuse to point a finger at them for doing something else other than what they're doing, okay? Well, good for them. All right, so I don't see any Torah issue with any of that. Okay, Ashley.
Sorry, I had to take a break. I just wanted to say, if I may make a comment that may help other people that have gone through similar things. When I was physically assaulted twice as a woman, if you know where I'm going with it, okay.
Yeah.
I asked the officer if you could ask the gentleman that did it the second time to me, why me? And normally they're not supposed to do that, but he was curious himself, I guess, and he said it's because I could tell it's already been happened once to her. And he was doing that to multiple people or multiple women, and it goes to show that you wear it on your face and you wear it everywhere you go, and I wish I could have learned it earlier to just let it go.
Okay, all right, thank you for sharing that. So look, let me take this in an interesting direction. It can go in both directions, by the way. You can wear something that makes you more appealing as a person that could be a victim in some way, but you could also take it from the other side. I've had ladies tell me that they know when somebody walks in a room that is one of those type of guys, because they wear it too, okay? And so that's something that I've heard as well. And so these are the kinds of things that can go in both directions. You can then, because if you can see it on them, they can also see things on you. And you gotta just be careful what it is you're projecting, okay? And so if you project fear, intimidation, you feel that you're afraid, you're intimidated, you're insecure, you have all of these anxiety, that makes you more likely, because they feed off of all that, okay? Because the whole act is a violent act, not necessarily a sexual act, but a violent act, because they feed off of the freaking out, screaming, and panic, and all of that. That's what they're feeding off of, okay? And if you don't look like you'll give them that, that's not going to attract it as much. That doesn't mean it can't happen to just anybody, but I'm just saying, there's things that I think make anybody a victim of anything more likely based on, the way you go things. But, okay, if you look at any of these guys out there do any kind of serial anything, they look for very specific types of people that they're looking for to do what they do, all right? Okay, last one, Chris.
I just wanted to comment on the victim mentality and what you're talking about as the victim wants support from someone seeking, whether it may be financial support. And I thought that was it's very interesting to me how that's that being the object versus the subject. And so if you were, it totally changes your mindset if you're the one who is either tithing, or you're the one going out and doing something instead of being the receiver, and how that I think it has a huge effect on destroying that mentality if you're the one doing the action, doing in whatever you're doing in your life, and focus on giving and not receiving, like that goes. And I definitely have to remind myself of that, because if I don't, I can usually there's some things like Shabbat or what to eat that becomes automated. But what will always happen to me is over days and days and hours, my body's always telling me I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I need this, I need that. And that is always the default. I always it takes active effort at every moment to overcome that and start giving, because otherwise it will always be focused on the fleshly receiving. I guess it's just how the body is.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. All right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and I think the children are all